Welcome to this week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about executive employment agreements. So a lot of organizations will have a varying amount of key employees at the top of their organization. So that might be the CEO, it might be the CFO, chief HR officer, COO, all those C titles often that are key employees that are really integral to the organization. They influence the culture, they influence the direction, and that's part of their role. But that can also mean that there's more risk there as well because they've got access to more information. They know how the sausage is being made, how decisions are being made, and are part of some of those sometimes a little bit more controversial or dicey conversations and decisions that are being made. So, what are some things that organizations should keep in mind when they are dealing with executives? Should they have agreements? What are some things that employers should be thinking about in that regard, Russell?
Yeah, let me preface this by saying this is not for every employee, and this is not for necessarily every leader or manager in many organizations. This is for executive team members at businesses that are large enough to have a true executive team that sits over a couple layers of managers, maybe. But then again, every business is going to be a little bit unique in that respect. But this is for high level managers. To your point, there are a lot of things that as a business you would want to protect and you would want to have security around, whether that's transitions of employment or confidential information or providing assistance with matters post-employment if there's still information that you need. These are executive level employees that have some leverage as well. So you have to think about it as a little bit of a give and take. And there's things that you're going to have to give to get those added protections. So you start looking at things that are a little more common in an executive employment agreement. That's sometimes bonus structures and scheduled raises and various potential for equity incentives or phantom equity incentives, as well as post termination. So if you want to lock people out post termination, that usually comes with some form of severance as well. And so you think of it as this is closer to two equals negotiating business terms for both the engagement and the post engagement time period than it is with ordinary employees, where as an employer, you're not going to have to give up as much to get the same levels of protections.
Yeah, and it's like in a lot of relationships and different situations that we talk about on OK at Work, if you're deciding these things up front, and not that they can't be changed over time, but for instance, separation conditions, because sometimes people split up and sometimes it's for a good reason and it's amicable and sometimes it's not, or sometimes it's somewhere in between. Putting these things, like you mentioned, severance in an agreement. So putting some terms around, hey, if we have a mutual separation for whatever reason, it might be that there's a difference in opinion about the future of the organization or varying different reasons that might cause some friction. Well, if you've already decided ahead of time what that exit plan and transition might look like, and everyone has agreed to it when everyone's happy in the beginning of the relationship, that can be really helpful and set a standard for a smooth transition because it is harder to transition those employees for the reason that you mentioned.
Yeah, even entering these executive agreements can be a little bit awkward because it's my business, but I'm hiring a CEO or I'm hiring somebody else in the C-suite to be my right-hand person. But we're going to start off by having this back and forth of why I want to give you this, I don't want to give you that. And you get into that, and that can be a little bit of an uncomfortable conversation. But I think it's healthy because you want to be able to work through those. This is someone who's going to be a leader in an organization. You need to be able to have that conversation with them and to work through sticky situations. I think it's worth working through. And ultimately, I think it's best for the business to have the right agreement in place with key team members. If for no other reason, then it gives the key team member security and comfort and solid foundation from which to do some really important work for you.
Yeah, great points. Well, thanks, Russell. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.